Russell T Davies came up with the initial concept of the Unquiet Dead, with the intention of showing the programme's range by exploring the past. After seeing the present in Rose and the far future in The End of the World, Davies felt that the Cardiff setting was important, as this was now where the series was produced. The Victorian setting and the inclusion of Charles Dickens were also Davies's idea, and commissioned writer and fan Mark Gatiss to write the script. The original script would be set in a spiritualistic hotel with fake mediums and more zombies. The working titles for this story included The Crippingwell Horror and The Angels of Crippingwell, with the original draft taking a pretty dark tone and subsequently rewritten to be a bit more light-hearted and to be a bit more of a romp. Gatiss originally didn't want Charles Dickens in the episode, as traditionally he felt that the Doctor only mentioned meeting historical figures, but he soon warmed to the idea. As a fan of A Christmas Carol, Gatiss wanted to set the episode at Christmas, even realising that Dickens' arc in the episode mirrored Ebenezer Scrooge's. Russell T Davies even requested a scene in which the Doctor takes Rose to the future to see a world with the result of leaving the Gelf undefeated, kinda similar to the 1975 story Pyramids of Mars, but this was dropped as it was too expensive to film. Despite being set in Cardiff, exterior scenes of the theatre were filmed at the Swansea Marina, with the interior being filmed at the new theatre in Cardiff for Dickens's performance and when the Gelf intervenes. The interior of Sneed's funeral parlour was filmed in Penarth, a former children's home. Another interesting thing about the production was that, according to Mark Gatiss in the Blu-ray and DVD commentary, there was going to be a scene where the Doctor would be mistaken for Mr. Sneed's new cleaner. Someone would have stated that, "I thought you'd be a woman," to which the Doctor replies, "No, not yet." Nice bit of foreshadowing there. But with the production out of the way, let's look at the story itself. The Doctor and Rose land in Cardiff on Christmas Eve 1869. The corpse of the late Mrs. Pease has been taken over by a blue vapour. Walking to a performance of Charles Dickens, the blue vapour scares the audience and attracts the attention of the Doctor and Rose. The owner of the funeral parlour, Mr. Sneed, kidnaps Rose after she's seen too much, with the Doctor and Charles Dickens in hot pursuit. The blue ghosts are revealed to be the Gelf, consigned to an ephemeral form after being devastated by the Time War, pleading with the Doctor to open the rift and inhibit the corpses, using Gwyneth, a servant girl, as a bridge to cross the rift. This is the first episode of the new series to be set in history, and the Doctor meeting a historical figure since the 1985 story Time Lash, unless you count Albert Einstein's cameo in Time and the Rani. But anyway, for the most part, this episode more than delivers on its spooky tale. The Gelf are a pretty creative invention, creatures made out of living gas, perfect to possess human corpses, as when we die, gases emerge in our bodies as we decompose, perfect for a gaseous being. I like how the Gelf in this pretend to be benevolent and vulnerable, but it's a ruse in order to conquer the Earth in force, kinda similar to the Axons in the Claws of Axos. They pretended to be friendly and provide gifts for the Earth, but really they just want to suck the Earth clean of energy. The plot similarities here shouldn't come as too much of a surprise, as Gatiss was practically raised on the Pertwee era, but whereas Axons was more of an action story, this works equally well as a ghost story, as every scene just breathes with atmosphere, perfect to watch on either Halloween or Christmas, though I go for the latter and I have this as the Ninth Doctor's unofficial Christmas special. Christopher Eccleston continues to shine in this episode. One of my favourite moments from his Doctor overall, actually, not just in this episode, has to be his fanboying over Charles Dickens. His reaction to discovering that it is the Charles Dickens is so funny to watch. Even though he's an alien, he still has a huge fondness for human culture and enjoys all of his work. I even love how he has criticism of his work in areas, and even the most fanatic of fans can give the most constructive criticism to their idols. Great stuff. I also love his debate with Rose about giving what he believes to be the last of the Gelf, human corpses to live in. The Doctor believes that the end justifies the means here. What are dead corpses against the last of a species? We're not going to need the dead anymore, so why can't we have gaseous beings living in them? Rose argues that we should respect them even in death, but the Doctor compares it to things like donor cards and recycling in the present day. The Doctor simply states that that's the way it is, accept it or go home. These two moments that I mentioned both showcase the Doctor's human and alien moments. It's a perfect balance of the character in my opinion. Though my Christopher Eccleston moment of the week, I had to choose the scene between him and Rose in the morgue. The Doctor even contemplates his and Rose's mortality in this scene. They're trapped by Gelf zombies and they think they're both going to die. Rose thinks it's impossible for her to die as she hasn't been born yet, but time is in flux and she could easily die here. letting viewers and Rose know that nothing is safe, even when taking part in events that have already happened from your point of view. But I love how the Doctor has seen so many things. World War V, the fall of Troy, pushing boxers at the Boston Tea Party. A story I'd like to see, by the way. And this is where he thinks he'll meet his end. I mean, it could be worse. You could have fallen off your exercise bike, Doctor. It's a great moment to catch the viewers and Rose off guard, as their cosy little world could be rewritten so easily, and even a character as omnipotent as the Doctor can be close to facing the end. The episode is great at showing the Doctor's range, his love for human culture, his morality complex, his mortality, all within 45 minutes, which is hard to do, but Gatiss makes it look so easy. As for Rose, I like her a lot more in this episode, with my favourite moment coming from her scenes with Gwyneth, and I like their clashes of culture, with Rose's attitude being a direct contrast to Gwyneth, Rose being the outgoing 21st century girl, and Gwyneth being the shy servant girl from the 19th century. But this moment allows Rose to bring Gwyneth out of her shell a little bit, encouraging her to get out more and think of a life outside of her work as an undertaker's servant. Other moments I do like is her fascination with going back in history, and I like her taking the first step in the snow when the TARDIS lands. History has already happened from her point of view, but with a machine like the TARDIS she's able to see it again. Not a bad life. The supporting cast are also fantastic in this episode. Simon Callow as Charles Dickens is fantastic. Plus, he's perfect casting to play Dickens, as he's someone who possesses extensive knowledge of the author, and even had experience playing the character and recreating his public readings. I love his character arc throughout the episode. He starts out as a brooding man all alone for Christmas and has almost given up on his ideas for future books. However, encountering the Doctor and the Gelf opens up his eyes again, and he has now seen the world in a completely different new light. The Doctor has made him a better person by the end. He's able to save the Doctor by turning up the gas and sucking the Gelf out of the corpses. Also, characters who meet the Doctor end up mostly better people by the end, and have actively contributed to the story's climax. That's 3 times in a row this series has done this. I hope you're keeping track, because this will be leading to something in the finale. While it's sad that within a year of the story's setting, Charles Dickens will have passed away, I think it's so moving that the Doctor made him a better person, and he can pass away knowing that his books and his legacy will last forever. I also really like Alan David as Mr. Sneed, being an unlikable but lovable Undertaker. Now I know that's a bit of a juxtaposition, but let me explain. In the opening, we see that he's able to be the grieving Undertaker for Mr. Redpath's grandmother, but as soon as she rises from her coffin, he drops the act and simply shouts, "We've got another one." He also refers to the dead as the Stiffs. Don't laugh. You can tell years of doing this job has caused him to take the dearly departed for granted, having spent presumably most of his career with the dead every day. The character could have easily become unlikable, but David's performance and Gatiss' script just gives us the right balance for me. As for Gwyneth, I kind of feel she's the weak link of the characters. She feels like more of a plot device than an actual character. Don't get me wrong, there are moments for her to shine, like her conversation with Rose, but examples of her being less of a character is her use of psychic abilities. For example, it's used to find Mrs. Peace, it's used to give backstory about Rose being a traveller, mentioning the big bad wolf, which I'm sure in the long run will turn out to be nothing. Bridging the rift, conducting the seance, destroying the Gelf, etc. These actions are all fine, but I feel we don't get to know much about her as a person. That's not to say Eve Miles isn't terrible in this, she's actually fantastic, and you can definitely see why she was kept around for Torchwood. It's just the whole plot device versus character feels a bit 70 to 30% in my opinion, and it should have been a bit more half and half. Production-wise, this episode most certainly shines. In my opinion, Doctor Who always did historical stories far better than the ones in the future, and this episode is no exception. You really feel like you stepped into the 19th century, and the snow on the ground really gives it the ghost story feel that the episode is going for. The cinematography is so great that it feels like you could go into the screen and touch it. Uros Lin is definitely one of the stronger directors of the Russell T Davies era, and even though his directorial debut was in The End of the World, I feel he's a better horror director than he is with alien or sci-fi. I'm not saying he shouldn't be allowed to, but if you look at episodes like The Unquiet Dead, Tooth and Claw, The Girl in the Fireplace, and Silent in the Library, you can see that he excels more with the horror, as all those aforementioned episodes are all dripping with atmosphere, and the spooky truly shining and outdoing the sci-fi in my opinion. The Gelf are really well realised on screen, with the CGI surprisingly holding up well after 14 years. The blue form looks so creepy and benevolent at the same time. You'd see why the Doctor would trust them. Plus, Zoe Fawn as the Gelf's voice is brilliant. She speaks with such vulnerability and intimidation that it's really impressive that she's able to do that right, and more than succeeds with these voices. To conclude, The Unquiet Dead is a great historical, mixing the supernatural with great dialogue and excellent character moments. Our main lead gets an excellent range of emotions across 45 minutes, the ghost story is interesting, as is the character arcs, and the episode is filled with stunning visuals that will definitely keep you awake at night. The Unquiet Dead is an episode I always watch at Christmas time, as there's themes about the departed, the ones who have left this world, and making amends for the ones that are still here. There's nothing much left to say about this episode other than, God bless us, everyone! Well everyone, that's all from me. Be sure to like, share and subscribe. Let me know in the comments below what you think of The Unquiet Dead. And also, as Mark Gatiss wrote this script, let me know in the comments what is your favourite Mark Gatiss episode on TV. Let me know and I'll take a look, and I shall see you all next time. Goodbye.